Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is Election Edge, Thursday's edition, 6 o'clock on the East Coast, 3 o'clock out west. And I am very happy to have two stellar guests with me today. Both have been on Election Edge. You've seen them before. Tom Del Beccaro and Cameron Moore. Happy to have both of you with me today. And gentlemen, today was a gigantic day on polls, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Today was also a breakthrough day. I mean, the Democratic candidate for president actually uttered words in an interview today. Cameron, let me start with you. The pollster Mark Penn came out and he characterized this race as, and I quote, no primaries, few interviews, no policy papers, and now lawfare. Cameron, it just seems that the Democrats will stop at nothing to just savage Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, they just placed Kamala in there without going through the right proper channels. And you can't find her policies anywhere. I understand they're not even on her website. The whole thing just is so far off. They're hiding her. Behind her, the puppet masters are hiding her. Whoever's pulling the strings, and the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. And why the poll numbers are so high in her direction when you can't even find Kamala, it makes zero sense. And I don't believe a lot of these manufactured poll numbers.
Well, we'll dive into those poll numbers a little bit later. I know you've been traveling around the country. You were up in Washington. You're going to be down in Florida. The people you're talking to, Cameron, what kind of feedback are you getting from just average Americans when you speak to them? What are their thoughts relative to the election?
Well, I think the majority of this country is pro-Trump right now. I mean, Trump was just at a speech today, I think, for the Michigan auto workers, and he was questioning these polling numbers. He said, who are they polling? 50 Democrats and 20 Republicans to get to these numbers? I think most of this country is behind President Trump. I believe most of this country wants to have money put back into their pockets. I believe most of this country does not want endless wars, and I think most of the country will make the right decision come voting day, November 5th.
Well, I hope you're right about that. Hey, Tom, you ran against her in 2016. You debated her twice. I had a chance to listen to a bit of a clip from Dana Bash at CNN where she asked her about basically flip-flopping on issues, and of course she did not answer the question. I mean, Tom, this sounds like par for the course with her. Are we going to expect to see more of this over the remaining 70 days of this campaign?
Well, I think what happened was, say, early April, it was her mind that she was just going to be running along with Joe Biden and that she was just going to say, we're working on these issues. That was her role. And then out of nowhere, the debate occurs. Joe does much worse than they expected. And then all of a sudden he's being pushed out, and then she's thrust into the limelight, and people made the assumption that she would have her own agenda, which she had never really thought about. So I think the reason why there were none of these policy papers or interviews was, to just be frank, that she didn't have anything to say and didn't know what her policies would be. And so they hid her, which of course is absurd when you're interviewing for the biggest job in the world. And I've always known her to be light on policy. Everybody has known her to be light on policy throughout her entire career. She's heavily dependent on consultants. And so she's also not studious, full stop. She is not studious. If you fail the California bar, it is because you are not studious. Not because it's so hard nobody can pass it, but because you're not studious. And so that seems still to be the case. And she will avoid interviews because it will display and show her lack of depth. And that's what you're seeing now. It'll be what you're seeing tonight. She's not quick on her feet. And that will carry forward.
Tom, I think it's a bad look that she had to have Tim Walz sitting at a table with her for the first interview. I mean, the questions that Dan asked about her, first of all, related to her changing position on fracking and her changing positions on immigration. And she got into some, again, the famous Kamala Harris word salad, talking about fracking, about how she supports the Green New Deal. And she talked about the Inflation Reduction Act, how it had mandates, which they had to adhere to. Nobody disagrees with that. But again, she didn't answer why she changed her policies. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing the answer is she's trying to lie to the American public, tack to the middle in an effort to secure votes from independent voters.
Well, what she couldn't say is that she switched the position because she truly reached a new understanding. And of course, that's the line we've been hearing of late, that, oh, it's okay if facts have changed to reach a new conclusion. Okay, it is. But when you're changing so many at the same time, that is a pure indication that you're not changing things because you've reached new conclusions. You're just being a bad politician. And so she couldn't answer truthfully that, oh, I'm doing this so I can win. And she couldn't answer untruthfully that, oh, I've reached a new conclusion and here's why. So she does the next best thing, which is sort of dissemble, but she's not very good at it either. She's not Bill Clinton when it comes to these things, or Barack Obama, who were articulate in their explanations, not truthful, and you couldn't necessarily follow or believe them, but at least they sounded articulate.
Cameron, you've had a chance to spend some time, on or around President Trump. And how would you rate how he has responded to this? And he's out everywhere. I mean, he's doing press conferences. He's, holding Q&A session, question and answer. He's got J.D. Vance giving eloquent speeches about what him and Trump have plans to do. It's such a contrast to this contrived, controlled environment that Harris and her consultants have put her in.
Yeah, Kamala had to go into that interview with her emotional support running mate, Waltz, and the whole thing is going to be pre-recorded so they can cut out that word salad that you're talking about, and maybe cut out some of that cackling. I don't think the public wants to hear that cackling as well. So I think Trump has taken any interview that he can get. He's doing Gen Z. He's doing the independent journalists. He's out there. He went into the lion's den at the black citizen or the black journalist interview where he got attacked. Trump has no fear in facing anyone, any question at any time. Who does have fear is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and Cameron, the media, again, some of the media people that you would not traditionally think are, quote, they're not Republicans, but someone like Chuck Todd, for example, he's come out and said this is a strategic mistake that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are making, deliberately avoiding the press, bringing him to the interview. And when someone like a Chuck Todd, and I've heard others in the mainstream media, they're starting to get to a point where they're irritated that she's not, quote, playing by the rules. And again, we're going to get into polling later. It's all over the map. But again, Cameron, I don't think this is sitting well with the American people. And again, Trump, he is not afraid to take on these issues.
No, he's definitely not. He's out there. He's doing multiple interviews a day. He's out there speaking. The man's an endless ball of energy. And I think whoever it is that's controlling Kamala is definitely hiding her and not letting the public see her. For what reason, I don't know. But I don't think she'll be able to handle the scrutiny of an interview. And I think this is what we're looking at. This debate's going to be pretty amazing to watch this. So I'm pretty looking forward to that if she even shows up.
Well, speaking of the debate, Tom, they did finally, ABC came out today on the debate and said, we're not going to agree to any of Harris's requests to change the format because this is a format that the Democrats and the Republicans had agreed to. So this debate is going to look very similar to the previous one when Trump knocked Joe Biden out of the race. And Tom, here's a specific question I have for you. And I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. It seems to me like the media is going out of their way to try to make Kamala Harris the change candidate. In other words, completely trying to untether her to Joe Biden in the last 3.5 years.
Yeah, and that's not going to look. That 40% of the country is going to vote for their side no matter what. There is 20% in the middle, and there's a solid 10% probably in every state who want to move forward. The problem for Kamala Harris is what you're describing. She can't plausibly say, I had nothing to do with it. She could say plausibly, I disagreed with the president when he did this, but I wasn't able to voice that nationally. But that's not what she's doing. She's saying essentially that, I wasn't a part of this. The problem is she's also said I was the last person in the room. And so this quandary that she's put herself in, this box, isn't going to resolve itself. She has to get an issue that she controls other than abortion where she can make headway. She doesn't have that, though, because her economics are bad and the border is just as bad. So she's in this box. She's bringing along her friend tonight to keep her company, and none of that's a good look. That's just pure weakness. And I can tell you that Putin and Xi Jinping have already decided what all they need to know about her, which is that she is very weak. And it wouldn't shock me if they're telling Iran, hey, just back off for now, because this is who we're going to get, and you'll have a free reign come next year.
Yeah, Trump's reaction, Tom, is that he just came out and said, while we're on the air right now, he did not think she wanted to go into that interview alone. Basically, she was scared to do a network interview because she probably feared she would get Lester Holted, just like she was a few years ago. And again, from her perspective, she believes she's up in these polls. We're going to get into that after the break, where we break it down how it's muddled at best. Okay. So, I've got to believe here that Trump's onto something here. And when the American people, those undecided voters, and there are some of them still left, particularly in those 7 swing states, which are that polling, folks, it is tight as a tick, and we'll show you in a little bit. But Tom, those voters, they are up for grabs. And I think when people see this and dissect this, they're going to see someone that, and I've just seen the clips, does not look, honestly, objectively like a commander-in-chief.
No, and she's not forthright. It's stunningly weak to bring your vice president along. And it's really bad form when you do it in connection with avoiding people for 40 days. If she had been giving interviews all along and then one interview brought Tim Walz, that's a different story. But the knock on her was that she was afraid to do the interview, and then she shows up with someone else, so that plays to type, and that is particularly damaging. And look, she is not the best linear thinker of all time. So these interviews, the more of them that are done, the better it would help President Trump, and the more debates it will be helped. The reason why she was fighting over this mic thing is she wanted, like in the Pence debate, she wanted to be able to be interrupted, and then she wanted to turn to him and say, I'm speaking, and play the victim. And she's not going to get that opportunity in this particular debate, and they won't be able to tout that about how Trump's rude to women, and that's I guess that was her game plan, and so they're upset they're not going to be able to use that.
Cameron, she said her values haven't changed. How do you square that? And you and I have had this conversation before, where when a politician tells you something the first time, believe them what they're saying. Cameron, how can she square her values haven't changed with these policy positions that clearly have?
Her values have obviously changed. A couple of years back, she said, we don't need a border wall. This is a Trump vanity project. We did not need a border wall. It's going to cost billions of dollars, which we ended up sending to the Ukraine anyways. And now she's running on the ticket that says, yes, we do need a wall. We do need a wall. I support a wall. Where's that wall been the last 4 years when we had open borders, as her as the borders are? Believe what she says the first time, because when she flip-flops to something else, I'm not believing that. I'm believing she wants open borders, and they're openly wanting to destroy America.
Yeah, I'm in your camp on that, Cameron. And I think this border situation, it is going to come back to haunt her. Listen, we're a little bit past break. We're going to take a short break here, but when we come back, we are going to dive into these poll numbers, and we got a couple great videos to share with you. Harris in her own words and one Trump commercial. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
720-605-3900. Kirk Elliott, great friend of Patriot.tv. Super guy, super company. For those of you who want to add some gold to your portfolio, pick up the phone and call Kirk. It will be well worth your while. Gentlemen, some polling numbers came out, and I'm not going to bore our audience with and reading them all because a lot of them are literally changing hour by hour, but I do want to give you some overview. Late this afternoon, right before we actually came on the air, Wall Street Journal has Harris +1. Quinnipiac has Harris +1. Rasmussen reports has Trump +2. And then when I dive into state polls, we got some from YouGov, from Yahoo News, from other polling outfits. And Tom, I'll start with you first. In some of the polls, like North Carolina, shows Trump up by 1 in both polls. Pennsylvania, Trump +1, even. Michigan, Harris +2, Harris +1. Arizona, one poll has Trump winning, one has Harris winning. I think it's safe to say that in these 7 swing states, Tom, plus or minus 1 point at this stage of the game, I've got to believe that's a Trump advantage, but I cannot say that comfortably because at this time in the 2020 election, Joe Biden was up 5, 6, 7 points on Trump and Hillary Clinton was up about 5. So either the polling's gotten better and more accurate or Donald Trump is looking pretty good or some combination. But when you have 2 reputable polling companies and they're coming up with close but different outcomes, Tom, what do you make of this?
Well, so I watch several aspects of polling. One that's very important to watch is voter identification by Gallup and enthusiasm by Gallup. And then you need to watch polling as it relates to battleground states as well. And then the third thing you need to watch is voter registration trends. So I don't concentrate on just one polling outfit in particular. Even if I don't like ABC's methodology with the Washington Post, if they use the same methodology poll to poll and there's movement, then and there's consistent movement among pollings in the same direction, then you can also draw from that. At the first 5 months of this year, Gallup said consistently that more people identified as Republicans than Democrats, and enthusiasm was on the side of Republicans. Well, the enthusiasm in Gallup is now on the side of Democrats. Why did this happen? Well, first of all, they were moribund under Biden. They began to realize they were going to lose, and so they just weren't happy, and they told Gallup as much. Now, it is still 80 days from the election, and so there is still time to go, but the truth remains that due to the switch in candidates and the incredible PR work for the Harris ticket that has been undertaken by NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, keep going, has breathed life in them. And so at this moment in time, I do think that the Democrats are better off than they were 6 weeks ago. However, we all know that Donald Trump has a history of underpolling. We know that David Axelrod has consistently told Democrats, don't believe these polls, because at this time 4 and 8 years ago, Hillary was significantly ahead, and so was Biden, but that's not how the race turned out. So I do think the race is in flux. They have gotten away with this 40-day silence, but this is still a up in the air, volatile race. And finally, I just need to point out, as you know, I wrote the book, The Divided Era. And the reality is that the Democrats, which are roughly 37% of the electorate, the core Democrats, will vote for that Democrat regardless. And so this is not, we do not live in an era where there's going to be too many runaway elections. The House, control of the House is going to flip-flop back and forth, and the margins likely aren't going to be too big. The Republicans have a natural lead in the Senate, which they should get because there's simply more red states than blue states. But this is a slow process, and these are going to be close elections.
I think your points are well taken on the closeness of the election and how that electorate is made up. Cameron, let me turn to you. The polling has also showed that Harris consistently polls better among Hispanic voters. Although Joe Biden pulled in 60% of Hispanics, Harris is polling 50%. She is polling consistently better among young voters, consistently among women. And on the flip side of that, Cameron, Donald Trump, for example, she's up 11 points with women, Trump's up 11 points with men. She's up with Hispanic voters, but on black voters, I've seen polling showing Donald Trump getting anywhere 18, 19, possibly 20% of the African-American vote. How do you see this, Cameron, in the overall, when we tie it all together, the various identity groups, who really has the edge here? Is it Trump by virtue of the fact he's gaining a lot more black voters? Or what else are you seeing based on the demographics of this race?
Well, I'm looking at legitimate pollers like Trafalgar and Rasmussen, who tend to be poll without bias. But I think the Democrats have lost their much needed black vote, which is now leaning towards Trump. And I think their playbook is known. Also, pump up the numbers with Kamala, so they can implement the cheat down the road and have the American people think it was a close race. I think the further we advance towards this election, the more support Trump's going to have, with the potential of facing jail time in September. He's got the hearts of the American people. I know that, and I think the American people know that. And as we go along, we're going to see the majority of these the polls go even further for Trump. That's my belief.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's so volatile right now, Cameron. I mean, when we say literally anything could happen, and if you think back, folks, from when this campaign was going on, we've literally gone from a Biden-Trump match to Biden dropping out, Trump damn near getting killed, new candidate comes in, no press for 40 days. Now we're sitting on the edge of what I believe will be a debate coming up September 10th. I don't think either candidate's going to back out. It's not in their best interest to do so. And I believe the public would have a backlash against a candidate if they did drop out. Cameron, one other piece on your thoughts. As we head into the debate, we know she's prepping like, a college kid would. Trump said the other day, hey, I know what the issues are. I know what I'm going to say. Does Trump go into this debate, Cameron, with an edge, or is there some strange way where Harris could have the edge?
Like you said, Mark, Trump said, I don't need to prepare at all. I'll just go in and answer the questions and ask the truth. Now, when you get in there and start lying, you have to, keep track of your lies and be able to live those down. I think Trump's going to crush her if she shows up. I mean, I'm concerned. I don't think she'll even make it to the election, to be honest. I think they're going to probably do a little change of batter down the road. We'll see.
Really? You think that she could do something so bad that she doesn't even make it to be on the election? Wow, that's
absolutely. I absolutely I do. I think there's going to be some news come out the next day or two about the January 6th pipe bomb, and word on the street is that she was associated with it, and that it's going to significantly damage her campaign. So that's the rumor, and I think in the next couple of days there's going to be some interesting news come out about Kamala, and I think our October surprise maybe even comes sooner.
Wow, what's the old saying? From your lips to God's ear. We'll see if that plays itself out. Tom, I've heard a couple commentators say, what Donald Trump needs to do? He needs to utter just the following words: when I was president, we had peace and prosperity. And are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Tom, is it really as simple as that for Trump, or does he have to complicate it more, talking about policy after policy after policy?
Well, elections are always about the future. He's able to say, this is what I did the last time under similar circumstances. Now I can do it again. And for these battleground states, which by definition are among the most divided, and I mean, think about it. She's going to get a lot of votes in California, the popular vote. She's going to get a lot of votes in New York, but it's these battleground states that are really divided. And for the independent votes within those states, Trump just needs to say, look, under me, we closed the border and we didn't have the following problems. They left the border open. It caused the migrant crime. It undercut wages for Americans and they allowed terrorists in. I'm going to close the border to stop terrorists from coming in, to stop this undermining of the American workforce, and to reduce crime. It can be done on day one because I actually did it on day one. She won't do it on day one. So he just needs to be very matter of fact about how simple it is to correct some of these issues. But he can't just say, I was good before, because the reality is the media has created an enormous amount of backlash against him. He is not, in a lot of circles, he's not beloved, and he needs to get past that with these simple solutions.
Yeah, I think you bring up some real good points, and I'll throw two statistics in on what you just said. 45% of Americans said they would never vote for Trump, but on the flip side, 49% say they'd never vote for Harris. Interesting dynamic, and obviously one of them's going to be wrong. All right, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we do want to show you this Trump ad, and we want to show you a Kamala Harris economic message. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is General Mike Flynn, and I'm inviting you to join me on September 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's September 4th, 4 p.m. Eastern. Mark that on your calendars. We'll be live on Patriot TV. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking only to our Patriot TV defenders for an exclusive discussion, a Q&A, if you will. Your presence is crucial as we dive into the matters that shape our great nation. And again, this is only for the Patriot TV. So if you go to patriot.tv, you can register today. There's a banner at the top of the website. You can sign up for September 4th, 4 p.m. Eastern. Together, let's stand strong for America's future. God bless you and God bless America.
Access to these events will be members only. So go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. Become a member today. Just go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member, join today.
And we're back. And as promised, Madam Producer, if you could key up that Kamala ad, I think our viewers will really appreciate it.
We should be doing everything we can to make it more affordable to buy a home.
A just-released housing index reveals just how rough the market is, especially for first-time home buyers. It showed home prices for the nation's top 20 metro areas rose 5.4% from June of last year to June of this year, a record jump for that month.
The average home buyer needs to make over $110,000 to afford the average home. Home buyers only needed to make $76,000 back in 2020.
Mortgage rates are now at their highest level in 21 years.
86% of U.S. renters would like to buy, but they can't. That really speaks to a lot of pessimism here about the American dream, how it feels like it's out of reach. Home ownership remains the ticket to wealth generation. So this is just widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
She stands there and says on day one, she's going to tackle the housing affordability crisis in our country.
But day one for Kamala was 3.5 years ago.
What the hell have you been doing for all that time?
Tom, that looks like a battleground ad that could be somewhat effective. The question will be, will voters be paying attention to the issues like inflation that's been 20% under Biden, housing prices, which unless you own a home, you're having to rent and it's almost unaffordable to buy. We had news come out about the economy today. Instead of growing 2.8% in Q2, it grew 3%. So, Tom, I mean, these economic numbers cut both ways, but if you're a voter, are you voting on your pocketbook as most people do, or are you going to vote on the Harris celebrity, the media fawning, just the glorification, the Harris honeymoon? Which way is the electorate going to be leaning on this one, Tom?
Well, again, I think it depends on the particular states. You know, the inflation issue is the Harris line is that, it's cooled off. But the reality is that's like a thief knocking on your door saying, I stole 20% from you yesterday, but today I'm only going to steal 3%. So you should feel good about that. The problem is mortgage interest rates, the damage was done. It rose. And even if they start cutting it, the historical average of interest rates is in the 4 to 5% range. They're not going to go much down very much. So there's nothing between now and the election that's going to save them economically. Even with economic growth, keep in mind, most of that is because the Fed is running trillion-dollar deficits every 6 months, and government spending is fueling the economy in the sense that there are government jobs, and then there also is government giving money to the healthcare sector. So that doesn't the government growth or the economic growth that they're referring to doesn't actually reach the private sector to any great degree. And then you also have to remember, as of jobs, that well over 1 million American citizens have lost jobs, and those jobs have gone to those people, to recent migrants. So no, their economics aren't going to work. And then take it to an individual state, where the EV mandates have really hurt Michigan because companies like Ford have lost all this money, and she wants those mandates. And so that's a bad future for them. You can't go to Pennsylvania and say you can't be an energy state. And Nevada, Trump got there first and said about the no taxes on tips, and then finally get to Arizona where they've been overrun. So it's a slightly different message in each of those states, but they can't undo the economics of this, which is why that's the strongest argument for how Trump is going to pull this out in the end.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Tom. And Cameron, turning to you, she had two crazy economic ideas. The first one, which has been widely panned, and we'll get a comment from Ron DeSantis here in a minute, but to tax unrealized capital gains, that is one of the dumbest ideas I think I've ever heard. I mean, that's worse than her idea of regulating food prices, which is Marxist, communist at best. And then Cameron, the other thing she came out and said was $25,000 she wants to give first-time home buyers. We're like out of the taxpayers' funds to help stimulate housing. All that's going to do is drive housing prices higher. What are your thoughts on these crazy economic ideas that she's got?
So, if I buy a stock for $10 and it goes up to $20 at the end of the year, I have to pay capital gains on money I haven't even realized. It's the same with buying a home. If you go buy a home and the value goes up, you're going to have to pay capital gains tax on that, even though you've never even sold the house. These are crazy commie socialist ideas and couldn't come from anyone but Comrade Harris.
Oh, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, think about this, folks. You've owned a stock maybe for 5 years, okay? And you're going to have to pay gains even though you haven't taken the gains. Well, what if you pay the tax and then the stock goes down? Then you're screwed twice. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida's a free state, folks, and it's 800 people a day are moving there. DeSantis had some comments about Harris' economic policies.
I don't know what's going to happen with the national economy going forward. I can tell you, if you have somebody like Harris actually try to do something like tax unrealized gains, that will tank this economy. We will feel that in Florida big time. You will have capital flee from this country. And here's the thing. First of all, an unrealized gain, it's not even a gain until you realize it. I mean, values fluctuate. And so maybe you buy a stock, and in 2 years it goes up by 30%, but 2 weeks later it could be down 15% from that high. This is not something until you sell it, you don't have on the open market. You don't. So the whole thing is ridiculous.
It's amazing. I mean, folks, you can't make this stuff up. So if people are voting on their economic issues, Donald Trump will be the 47th president. And if the old adage, vote your pocketbook, doesn't apply and she wins, then we got to rethink the political calculus here. All right, Tom, since we spoke about a week ago, a couple things have happened. When we talked, Kennedy had just exited the race. Now, Cornel West and Jill Stein are on the ballot in quite a few states. Tom, the Democratic Party did everything they could to get West and Stein off of ballots. But to the credit of some of the judges in these states, they basically said, no, these candidates were rightfully on the ballot. They will stay on the ballot. And Kennedy included. He tried taking his name off. Some states he was successful, others not. But I can't fault the judge in this case who was consistent, basically saying that Kennedy, Stein, and Cornel West should be on the ballot.
Yes, the great saviors of democracy trying to sue to get people off the ballot that harm them and jail the person who might beat them. I mean, think about this. A week ago, Kamala Harris told it. Was that just a week ago? It seems like 100 years ago. A week ago, Kamala Harris told us that it's the specific intent of Trump to jail his opponents. And then 4 days later, her Justice Department issued a new indictment of President Trump. I mean, it's just so dystopian to even conceive of these things. But if Kennedy is to help Trump, he needs to go around and take that message and take it away from Trump in this sense. He should go out there and say the Democrats are the threat to democracy. They pushed me out. They wouldn't let me run a primary, on and on and on, and take up Trump's mantle about how they tried to jail him. And Tulsi Gabbard needs to do the same and let Trump talk about how he's going to fix the economy. That's a great combination of messengers.
Madam Producer, right off cue there, what Tom was talking about, let's run that Trump commercial related to who is Kamala, because I think it spells a lot, and then we'll go to Cameron after the video.
Bankers seemed puzzled.
So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care.
Now her campaign says she no longer supports entirely government-run health care. She's flip-flopped on other issues.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
No question, she told CNN. But now Harris wants votes in Pennsylvania, where fracking provides jobs. Her campaign now says she won't ban fracking. And they even say Republicans claiming she wanted a fracking ban is false, an obvious attempt to distract. But what's false? That's what she said.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah.
She also wanted to force gun owners to sell their guns to the government.
I support a mandatory buyback program.
Mandatory. But again, today,
a Harris campaign spokesperson tells us that the vice president would no longer require this.
So who is the real Kamala Harris?
Cameron, fracking generates in Pennsylvania the fourth largest state in the country for oil production. Something tells me that will not go over well in Pennsylvania. And mandatory buyback of guns, something tells me down south people are not going to be too happy about that policy.
No, let's not forget, we were energy independent under Trump. In fact, we had a surplus where we actually sold some off. And being reliant on this foreign energy is not good for America. And they're obviously trying to destroy America and weaken us from within and hit us where it hurts, which is what you said is our pocketbook.
Well, gentlemen, we've pounded Kamala Harris for changing her positions. But one thing we are on Election Edge, we're fair with both candidates. So we've got some breaking news that just hit the wires, and you guys may not have access to it. But Tom, I'm going to start with you. Donald Trump has now just announced that a 6-week abortion ban is too short. That has political pros and cons to go with that position. Why don't you share with our audience the pros and the cons, because he's got a lot of pro-lifers behind him, and it does look just like Harris is trying to tack to the middle on her issues she's weak on. Donald Trump may be doing a little bit of the same here.
Well, of course, he has been on multiple sides of the abortion issue over his lifetime. And so right now there are, in battleground states, I think there's 8 states or 11 states, I think, where abortion-related issues will be on the fall ballot. And recent history shows that that's a turnout model that helps the Democrats. So he may be trying to blunt some of that. But in the process, what you're going to hear from Kamala is he's changing his views, so leave me alone when I change my views. And so we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, the timing, I think, is somewhat questionable. You know, there's an old saying in politics, when your opponent's stepping in it, just shut up, don't talk. And I think she may have stepped in it today, but Trump may be trying to steal the spotlight. I don't know. Political strategist, that one doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Okay, we're going to take our final break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some issues of the day. A lot going on around the world. And has anyone seen Joe Biden lately? Be back in 90 seconds.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Attention business owners, are you ready to advertise to millions of loyal patriots ready to buy your products or services? Here's your golden opportunity to advertise with Mark Schaftlein. When you advertise on Election Edge, you've aligned your company with a trusted voice and connected with an audience that shares your values. Mark hosts the exciting new live show that delves into every facet of the 2024 U.S. presidential election, offering insightful analysis, expert interviews, and up-to-the-minute coverage of the key events and developments throughout the election season. When you advertise on Election Edge, you're aligning your brand with integrity, loyalty, and a dedication to truth. Mark's audience is passionate, conservative, and committed to the values your business stands for. When given the choice, Mark's followers will buy your product or service over other woke companies. Don't miss this opportunity to elevate your brand with the power of Patriot TV. Reach out to us today at advertise@patriot.tv.
And we're back. Cameron, you had some thoughts on that Trump position. Care to share it with our listeners and viewers?
Well, I think Trump is a master chess player, and he's playing 3D chess with people right now. You know, he's a study of Sun Tzu in the Art of War, who states never mess with the enemy when they're in the process of destroying themselves. And the Democratic Party has no problem destroying themselves; they're self-destructing, and I think we're watching the systematic self-destruction of the Democrat Party right now, and Trump just needs to stay course and let these people destroy themselves, because that's what's happening.
Well, let me ask you this, but I want to talk international politics for a minute now, and some things that have happened just this week. Israel launched major strikes in the West Bank. Cameron, you just spent some time in the West Bank and in Israel. For our viewers and listeners' perspective, how crazy is it, and what's everyday life like in Israel right now with the constant threat of Iranian missiles, Hezbollah missiles, and an ongoing war in Gaza and strikes in the West Bank?
Well, it's very scary. You know, the Jewish people of Israel have dealt with a lot over there. You know, I was driving down the street. If you make a wrong turn, it says essentially you're going to die, because Area A, you can't go into Area A. So one block, if you go make a turn one block the wrong direction, you're in danger. These people went through so much with that attack. I think that was back in October, and they're all living by the seat of their pants. But they're all pro-Trump. They're all pro-Trump over there. He came and he put the embassy back in the proper place, which was Jerusalem, and the Israeli people are all supporting President Trump. I wore my MAGA hat every day out there, and I got so much love for it, and so many high fives. And I'm nervous for the people of Israel, but I think they're going to get through this, and they're strong and resilient, and they've proven that in the past.
Tom, on another international front, Russia and Ukraine, the Russians have launched massive missile strikes on Kiev and surrounding cities. The Ukrainians are attacking Russian cities. The Russian foreign minister is making commentary that, hey, if the United States basically doesn't stop doing this and their allies in Europe, that we could be on the verge of nuclear weapons use. I mean, I'm hearing that coming out of the Russians. And again, I don't think it's bluster. Tom, you made a comment earlier, they may be waiting until the outcome of the election to do something. But this war shows no end in sight. And Kamala Harris' platform is still to continue to support whatever it takes in Ukraine.
Look, you have three hotspots. You have the Middle East, you have Ukraine, and not so much a hotspot, but all of what China's doing with around the globe. And none of those three can anyone see to the other side and some resolution that makes that will come easily. And so there's zero chance the Ukrainian war will somehow stop between now and election day, or even into next year under a Harris-Biden administration. There's zero chance the Middle East is going to resolve. I also don't think that they would blow up out of control, because if they got substantially worse, it would hurt Kamala Harris. Oddly, because in most of the last 60 years, if there was an international flare-up, there would be a rallying around the existing White House. But no, these are viewed as the problems of the Biden-Harris administration. Trump leads in polling on foreign affairs issues. She's terrible in foreign affairs, and people saw that. And so I do believe, even though Russia it is escalating it or responding in kind to what the Ukraine's doing, I don't think there'll be the use of nuclear weapons between now and the election. And I think China will bide their times. They want Kamala to win this race. They want nothing to do with a second Trump administration.
Well, I concur there, and I didn't mean to insinuate that they were going to use nuclear weapons, but anytime someone that has them rattles the proverbial saber, it's time to stand up and pay attention, because I'm in your camp on that. The Chinese clearly, I think, want Kamala Harris to win. On the Russian side, I'm not sure it's so clear. Putin may be looking for a way out of this. I've had the theory for a while that if Donald Trump wins the election, the probability of that war ending in Ukraine is much, much higher than it would be if Harris wins the election. Cameron, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that a theory that makes some sense? I mean, we know the Chinese want Harris, but if Trump's in, will that hasten the end of potentially this devastating war between Ukraine and Russia?
Well, Trump has made it crystal clear. He said multiple times, I'm going to solve and I'm going to fix this war. I'm going to get a peace deal within 24 hours. Within 24 hours. He's made that statement many times. I believe he's been a good leader, showing peace through strength. And I do believe that Putin would love to have President Trump in office, because they're both been vocal about this globalist agenda that's infiltrating our country and our world, for that matter. And so, I believe Putin respects Trump. And can you imagine Putin even talking or having any kind of negotiation with Kamala? It's laughable.
Yeah. No, I'm in your camp on that. As to which way it's going to go, who knows? But I do know this: on all the major issues, folks, whether it be the economy and inflation, immigration and securing the border, crime, we'll get to that in just a second, and foreign affairs, Donald Trump leads. Harris is only up in two categories: abortion and healthcare. So again, I go back to what we've been talking about this week on Election Edge. Will this election be decided by the issues? My belief is that if Donald Trump does the things that both Cameron and Tom have talked about on this show today, the probability is he will win the election. But again, if he starts the personality insults, the crowd size, the talking about her appearance, those are losing issues. Because, Tom, I agree with you. Elections are about the future, not about the past. And if Harris can somehow continue to have this media basically say, she's the new face, and we joked about it on yesterday's show, J.D. Vance had her joined at the hip with Biden, and Politico came out and basically said, how dare they tie her to Joe Biden? And the comment of J.D., well, she's only been his vice president for 3.5 years. I mean, come on now. All right, we got a couple minutes left. Tom, Joe Biden is nowhere to be seen. I mean, he was in California. They didn't see him. He's on the beach in Delaware. Tom, who's really running the country right now while this campaign's going on?
Why do you ask since the campaign started? Look, this is a combination.
I'm trying to be generous.
It's a combination of Obama staffers in there, and there are people that are loyal to Biden, and this is why he never wanted to resign, because Harris's people are different than the Biden people that were in control, and he was strong-armed out of it. So it's these same shadow people. And Kamala Harris is going to have to rely on who ultimately, if she won the election, ultimately she would have a similar thing. It's not clear who those people would be, but obviously there isn't someone there with core leadership abilities whatsoever. And in a dangerous world, probably the most dangerous world that we've had in decades, it's a disaster to think that she would be in there.
Oh, boy, I'm in your camp solely. And, I've had conversations with General Flynn, Cameron. His belief is that Barack Obama, this is his third term that we're dealing with right now. Cameron, how do you see it right now? I mean, you've talked to people, in fairly high places in the government. Who's actually calling the shots right now? Is Biden really doing anything, or is it Barack Obama, Susan Rice, and Kamala Harris making those calls?
Barack Hussein Obama is 100% running this country. He is in his third term. He made it clear that he would wanted to have a third term and do it behind the scenes, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing play out right now. So, Biden's on the beach and he's in that same pose, which is flat on the beach. I'm surprised he doesn't have skin cancer, because he just gets he's been sitting out in the sun all day. There's nuclear footballs nowhere near him. I mean, so I don't believe that it's Biden running the country. I think Obama's the puppet master, and I completely agree with General Flynn on that.
All right, we got a minute and a half left. I'm going to start with you, Cameron, and Tom, I'm going to come to you. Cameron, 30 seconds. What does Trump have to do to win this election?
He just needs to stay course, get out there, do more rallies, which I believe he's going to do, and just let them fall apart, because that's exactly what they're doing. We're witnessing it. So stay course, get out there and be in front of the people that love him the most.
Tom, same question to you. What does Trump have to do to win this election?
Three things: get on the debate stage with her as much as possible. 2, go to the individual battleground states, tailor the message to those states. Nevada's different than Pennsylvania. And 3, talk about how he's going to solve the problems they created. And those 3 things will get him over the finish line.
Real quick, Tom, tell our viewers about the book that you wrote, so applicable.
All right, it's called The Lessons of the American Civilization, Amazon bestseller. It's pretty applicable. Chapter 10 alone covers America, capitalism, and socialism. It explains how we reached this moment in time. I think it's a good read. So maybe your voters can just Google it or go to tomdel.com and pick up a copy.
And not to leave out our other guests, Cameron, cameo appearance on the cover, Capital Times Magazine. Let me get there's a good shot of it. All right, that's it for today on Election Edge. Thank you to my 2 guests. Insightful analysis as always. We'll be back on Friday. Again, focus President Trump and you will win. That's it for today. See you tomorrow.